Good afternoon. Welcome to our federal debate 2021. We are here with all of our candidates. This is the first debate that we've had, and we will welcome everyone. We would like to welcome our candidates. We have all four, as I said. We have Casper. Good morning. Good afternoon, Casper. I'm sorry, we're so used to having a morning show. I'm programmed to say good morning. Good morning, Casper, Terry, Marie, and Sunny. Thanks for joining us today. We just want to go over some housekeeping rules for everyone and for yourselves, so you know how we're going to proceed. We have a bell, which you are going to hear. Did you hear that bell? Did you hear the bell? Yep. When you hear that bell, that is your cue to begin. You will have 2 minutes in this first section to talk about your platform and what you're running on, and then we're going to go to the next candidate. When you hear, then you're going to hear me say 10 seconds. That is your countdown. You're going to hear another bell, and then you will end, and we'll move on to the next candidate. So, Terry Sheehan, we would like to begin with you. You have 2 minutes to please tell everyone your platform and what you want to see for this election.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for hosting this debate on this very important election, and I would like to also welcome the other candidates as well, and to say thank you again for providing this forum to Sue Online and to all the viewers and such that are watching today. I'd like to welcome you as well. And my name is Terry Sheehan, and I am the Liberal candidate for the riding of Sault Ste. Marie, seeking re-election. I'm a two-term MP. Previous to that, I served 4 terms on City Council and 2 terms as a school board trustee, as well as I've spent my life in business and economic development in both public and private sector. Those experiences have helped me in my job since 2015, as we have garnered record-breaking investments for this community, and we have seen us starting to turn around. So I'm very pleased to, be putting my name forward again as the Liberal candidate for your member of Parliament to be your voice in Ottawa and not Ottawa's voice in Sault Ste. Marie. Nice. Since 2015, we've been taking great strides to make life more affordable for Suites and Canadians. We've been fighting climate change. We've created and maintained jobs, and we've grown the middle class through a variety of measures. And our plan has been working. We put more money in the pocket of 9 out of 10 parents through the Canada Child Benefit and helped lift 400,000 children out of poverty. And it's no longer free to pollute anywhere in Canada. And we cut taxes for the middle class and raised them on the top 1%. So when the pandemic hit, our Liberal team took the same approach that we always have. We supported Canadians. We took immediate action and made sure you could pay your bills and keep food on the table with the Canada Emergency Recovery Benefit. For almost 6 million Canadians, many of them in the Soo, they had nothing. They were not eligible for EI. And so I think about 18 months ago and how challenging that time was, and how we were able to put that together and put it out was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Terry, that's your 2 minutes. I appreciate your time. Now, the riding of Sault Ste. Marie, I did want to open with this. It covers 5,900 square kilometers and has a population of 80,000, most of that being in the city of Sault Ste. Marie itself. Marie, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself, comment on your platform, and welcome to this debate.
Thanks, and thank you to everybody for watching. I want to start by acknowledging that the land we're speaking to all of you from here is part of the Huron-Robinson Treaty Territory and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the people of Garden River, Batchewana, and the other First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who live on these lands today. So thank you to everybody for watching, participating in the democratic process. My name is Marie Mornstrom, and I'm proud to be the new Democratic candidate for Sault Ste. Marie. I'm a teacher, a union leader, and a single mother. I've dedicated my career to public service, especially in support of the most vulnerable among us, which are our children. I fought for workers' rights as a grievance officer and chief negotiator, and now as president of my local. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have the most comprehensive and robust platform to affect real change in everyday people's lives. We're committed to significant and necessary changes to environmental policy to address the climate crisis, We're committed to investing in new technology, green energy solutions, and infrastructure to keep and grow jobs here in the North. We're committed to enhancing public services and making life more affordable for Canadians. And we are committed to true reconciliation and building a nation-to-nation relationship with Indigenous people. After 6 years of broken Liberal promises and 10 years of Conservatives cutting services for workers in the middle class, before that, Canadians are ready for someone who is real and doesn't answer to the powerful and is ready to fight for people like you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Very well said. Sunny Spina, you are we do know who you are in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. You once protected our community as a police officer. Thank you for your time with the service. You were also a media relations officer during your time at police services, but now you are running again for the PC party. You have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sunny Spina. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge that we're here today on the traditional Ojibwe territory of the Robinson-Huron Treaty. This is the gathering place, and it was the homelands of Garden River and Batchewana First Nations and the Métis Nation. I want to acknowledge each of their customs, traditions, and protocols. You know, each of us has had to relearn how we do so many things that we used to take for granted 2 short years ago. Organizing events like this is not easy. I want to say thank you to the staff of Sioux Online, and thank you to each and every one of you and the rest of the participants here today. I believe that Canada's best days are ahead of us. We have an incredible opportunity here in Sault Ste. Marie. The global pandemic has shattered the expectation that you have to live where you work. Our workers, graduates, and businesses now have access to opportunities from across Ontario, Canada, and across the globe while staying right here in our community to raise their families. But we must proceed with caution. We're still facing a global pandemic that continues to shift and morph with new variants that challenge our healthcare and our scientific communities on a regular basis. During this time, we must support our local small businesses because it's difficult for them. That's why I'm happy to support our job surge plan and our Rebuild Main Street business plan, including a GST holiday this December on purchases made in local stores right here in Sault Ste. Marie. Across Canada, we've had more people suffering from mental health and addictions issues directly because of COVID-19. Everyone who wants to recover from addiction should have that opportunity. Our government will make historic investments in healthcare, including additional investments in mental health and addictions to provide timely paths to recovery for anyone suffering from addictions. Next, we have to get crime under control. Crime, especially violent crime, has gone up across our community, and we see offenders charged, released within minutes, and many times committing offenses the same day.
You have 10 seconds, Sunny.
Has to stop. I will work with Aaron O'Toole to review the catch and release provisions of Liberal Bill C-75 and the impact it has had on the safety of our communities. I ask that you view my website.
Thank you, Sunny.
And our plan.
Appreciate that. Last, we have Casper Mikowski. Hi, Casper. He is a first-generation Canadian born of Polish parents. Welcome to the debate. Casper, you have 2 minutes and you may begin. Casper's audio is not working.
There we go. So my name's Casper Mikowski. I'm the PPC candidate for Sault Ste. Marie. The reason I decided to run in this year's federal election is mainly because of a particular set of values that I embrace and that I share with the PPC and all Canadians all over the country. These values are being forgotten. They're being compromised, and frankly, I feel they're being disrespected. These values are essential to how we manage our individual lives, our lives of our family, and our communities, and ultimately our country. Values such as individual responsibility, fairness, respect, and then above all else, freedom. These values are the foundation of our legal and political systems, and they also serve as the backbone to our Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They are integral to maintaining a relationship between government and its citizens, and they also ensure that the balance of power does not become unbalanced. So our current administration has put in place policies that simply don't align with these values. They essentially disempower and distrust the citizen. They are literally putting citizens against each other. The other parties are also kind of on board with these decisions, and the PPC is not. We put our Constitution and our values front and center, and we make our decisions from there. It's not easy, but it is simple. So the decisions that we agree on by casting our ballot in this particular election will decide what kind of precedent we set for ourselves today and for our children and for generations to come. So even though the PPC might not have a shot it's still very important here in Sault Ste. Marie to oppose a particular set of ideologies and decisions and to really focus on our freedom. So my hope today is that I can bring some attention back to these values and return them to the forefront of our decision making, because only through commonality and trust in democracy will we find balance to overcome these challenges and the challenges to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. Thanks to everyone. Oh, just in the nick of time. The next section now, we are going to ask specific questions to each candidate. The person that we ask has 90 seconds to answer. From there, the next, if you would like a rebuttal, the other candidates have 60 seconds. The first question is to you, Terry. Again, you may begin when you hear the bell. Over the past few years, the Liberal government has been criticized for buying off the media. This stems from a Liberal plan to help the print and broadcast media coping with the loss of advertising dollars. Can you speak to this, and is this criticism warranted?
We will always stick up for Canadian voices. It's so important that media of all sizes are supported within, the communities here. Locally, I've supported all the media, and I can tell you it's really great. And before I go too far, I had my land acknowledgement. I wanted to land acknowledgement to Garden River Batchewan and the people of Métis. I just ran out of time when I was speaking, so thank you for sharing your land.
Thank you for acknowledging them.
And the last piece is we're going to make, the Facebook platforms and all that. We're introducing plans so that when they share stories, say from Sue Online, that Sue Online will be remunerated for the great work that you do. So there is plans in place that we have, and through our platform and through our ideas, we want to make sure that those platforms that are sharing your great stories, that the media and the reporters are duly compensated. And I think that's how we'll build back Canadian media, because we live right here on Sault Ste. Marie in this great riding, how big it is, and we have our American friends across there that are constantly bombarding us with their news, and it affects sometimes our thinking process. So people like Sue Online that tell local stories are critical, and they should be compensated fairly from the big web giants that are using your stories.
Thank you very much, Terry. I am now opening the floor up to 60 seconds to each candidate for their response. Given that there are no takers, we'll move on to our next question, which Heidi will have for you.
Okay, I'll address my question to Sunny Spina. Sunny, you were once a frontline responder, so my question is, given the ongoing discussions that we've been having with regards to the opioid crisis and identifying the multiple facets that are in play, what is your party's plan to alleviate the stresses that are currently being absorbed by the frontline?
Directly in relation to opioids?
Well, the opioid crises and the multiple aspects. Yeah.
Yes, so this has been an issue for quite some time. And in fact, if you remember, March 24th, 2017, I was actually the first person in Sault Ste. Marie to host a town hall on opioids issues that were going on in our community. We raised it then. We needed government to deal with it then. It's been how long? It's been 6 years of this government. They've done nothing to address those problems here in our community. It's really incredibly important for me to provide people a path to recovery. Our government will provide many millions of dollars in order to create 1,000 treatment beds across Canada. We will provide the dollars to create 50 different facilities across Canada for those suffering with addictions so that they can have a path to recovery. We will also provide additional funding directly to First Nations communities so that they can provide the healing in their communities for their people that need it. We recognize that not everyone heals the same way, that everyone does heal differently, so it needs to be culturally appropriate facilities to help deal with these individuals. We're going to put naloxone kits in the hands of frontline workers, service providers, and support mechanisms for people who are struggling with addictions and continue to engage them on their path to recovery so that it can be a timely response when they need it, so we can help address the root cause of their issue and help them on that path to recovery.
Thank you very much. That's your 10 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now open the floor to the other candidates for a rebuttal.
I will.
Okay, Terry, when you hear the bell, you may begin.
I just would, with all due respect, would like to point out to Mr. Spina that we have taken action. And this opioid pandemic has been with us for many, many years, including during the time when the Conservatives were in power. And it was the lack of inaction by the previous Conservative government that led to the spikes that we have seen, when we took power. But we took immediate action, putting emergency funding available to the province of Ontario in our first mandates. We're seeing some, the money and stuff going into a level 3 facility now. I support that fully with the MPP. We also have an innovative project with the local Sault Ste. Marie Mental Health Association, $700,000 through an opioid fund that we have funded for a 39-month harm reduction and recovery project, and it has 50 peer workers working with 8 partner agencies to address this issue. There's a further application that I support that will have people out in the street working for that. Also on the Indigenous, we have funded Nogdawinimim for millions of dollars to help with the funding of...
You have 10 seconds left, Terry.
Including the Baby Lucius Center that I had the privilege of cutting the ribbon on. So there has been action. You can physically see it on Queen Street. You can see it through the Sault Ste. Marie Canadian Mental Association, and I welcome the candidates to contact them to find out more information.
That's your time. Thank you, Terry. Casper, or Marie, I apologize. I did see your hand raised first before Terry, and Casper, you can go after Marie. Marie, you can begin when the bell rings.
So the reality is that frontline workers desperately need support from social services, and both liberal and conservative cuts over the last 15, 20 years have resulted in massive cuts in social services. And so what ends up happening is police officers, education workers end up being the mental health professionals and the addiction counselors that people really need. What we need is to ensure that we have full funding for services for people who have addictions, for people in poverty, so that they can get the services that they need, and that will support our frontline workers. It will help reduce crime.
10 seconds.
And will allow people to get the support and services that they need.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Casper, we open the floor to you. You have 60 seconds. When you hear the bell, you may begin.
So I think it's important to be intimately connected to a particular problem to have solutions for it. I think there's a loss of connection. I don't believe that the current strategy or strategy that have been implemented in the past is all helpful. I don't think providing, safe injection sites or subscription to a different opioid to battle an opioid addiction is effective. It keeps individuals dependent and disempowered. I don't think that addiction is a new concept to us. We all have it in our lives, either with people or with different types of addictions, essentially. And I think it's very important to realize that it's more of a mindset, and to have proper structures that have people that are associated to it coming up with solutions, instead of people that are kind of disconnected from the problem.
10 seconds.
So I feel that it's important to include that type of thought process. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper.
Thank you.
And Casper, while I have your attention, I'm going to direct the next question to you. Ontario is home to 22% of all Indigenous people in Canada. So those are our provincial numbers. Most of those live in Northern Ontario. Most of them live in flyout zones, remote areas. With the recent news of residential schools, what are your plans to represent our community? Understanding that there is a large community of Indigenous communities in Ontario, being from Sault Ste. Marie, how are you going to represent our First Nation communities affected by this and reconciliation?
Residential schools and the residential school children issue that has been arising in the public, that's a heavy topic. Mm-hmm. And I usually try not to have an emotional response to such a complex problem, but how can you not? Like, it reaches all of our hearts, and to think of the atrocities in the past is just absolutely heartbreaking. However, an inconvenient truth that the development of all our nations always seems to have such horror stories in it. Like me being Polish, I've grown up listening to the stories of the Holocaust and how children's lives have been taken through discrimination and hatred. What I do know is that those feelings are much more intensified when truths aren't recognized, especially by our institutions or by our history books, for that matter. So I think the most important thing to understand is that there's no solution really to make things right, but the least we can do is, get the story right, and to really, learn from it. It's our duty to learn from the past, and the only way to truly do that is to get the past correct and right.
Thank you, Casper. I will open the floor up to any other candidates who will have 60 seconds to respond to that question. Sunny, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Thank you. This is a very important question, and it's just I have to agree with Casper. It's very difficult to talk about this without becoming emotional. It's a difficult topic because it does affect us all, and I think we all recognize the somber and the mourning that all people feel, including Indigenous families, when we do this. We are committed. Our party is committed to moving forward with our Indigenous partners. We are committed to the calls to action 71 to 76 with the missing children and burial information from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I'm proud that was initiated in 2007 by a conservative government, and it's something that needs to be followed through on. We need to work in conjunction with our First Nations partners to ask them what they need and to bring answers back to those communities. Those kids need to come home. We have to deal with this, and we have to work with our partners to deal with this in a timely way, in a respectful way that respects and honors their traditions and culture.
Thank you, Sunny. And again, I just want to put it out there. I do want an answer as to how we are going to address the unmarked graves that are here in our community. And when we can bring that up, we will be throwing to a commercial break after these questions are answered. But it is something else to think about, how we are going to help our local and unmarked graves sites that could be here, and how Shinwak Hall is represented. Marie, you did have your hand held up. When you hear the bell, you may begin.
The horrific tragedy of these children is unspeakable. And the reality is that it's unearthed a truth for the rest of Canada that Indigenous people have known for 100 years. That when you rip children away from their families, when you lock them in an institution and starve and abuse them, you will have far too many children who never return home. This was a genocide. We need to look into that. The NDP is committed to appointing a prosecutor to look into crimes. This only ended when I was in high school, so this isn't something that ended 100 years ago. This is a recent phenomenon that needs to be looked into, and the NDP will fund and support local communities for their search and the return of their lost children under the direction
10 seconds.
Of those local communities.
Thank you very much. Terry, I open the floor to you. You have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Yes, it's a very, very emotional experience, and the uncovering of the graves of the poor lost children's souls was very, very awakening for a lot of people. My involvement with the survivors of the residential school has been many, many, many years before that. And when I first got elected, it was Shirley Roach, a good friend, and we miss you, walked over at an announcement at Algoma University that I had with a plan for the Anishinaabe Discovery Center, the Shinwak Kinagami. And, she said, this is our vision from Chief Shinwak, to build a center of learning, of culture, of healing, of truth and reconciliation. So I began working with the survivors and the chiefs, and we got it. We got it funded. That's that beautiful building that I took the Prime Minister to. When the Prime Minister was here, I had invited the Indigenous leadership, the chiefs from all over the survivors, to come and talk. And I can tell you that I will continue to be their voice. I will continue to take action, and truth and reconciliation is happening here. And we are funding through the leadership of the First Nations, finding the burials, and I take the lead from them. I've already talked to them. Thank you.
I want to thank each of you for answering that question. We are going to take a quick commercial break, grab some water, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Family owned and operated, A.G. Quinnell Well Drilling has been serving Sault Ste. Marie and surrounding area since 1968. For a free estimate, call 705-779-3909. A.G. Quinnell Well Drilling, available for all your water needs. 1944, 2nd Line West, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. A.G. Quinnell Well Drilling. Call 705-779-3909 for a free estimate today. ONNtv News, supported by the Canadian Bush Plain Heritage Centre, where adventure takes off. ONNtv News, supported by Gary Chervinsky, Exit Realty, Lake Superior. Buying a home is a big decision, so is choosing the right agent. Call Gary Chervinsky, broker at Exit Realty, Lake Superior, 705-257-5432.
ONNtv News, supported by Maker North, 3D printing, laser cutting, 3D design, education, prototyping, and more. Maker North, whatever it takes.
Every day, people in crisis need someone to answer their call for help, to let them know they're not alone. Whenever people need someone, the Canadian Red Cross is there, on the phone lines and the front lines, around the world and here at home. But none of it would be possible without people just like you. No matter who you are, you have something to give. You can be that someone with the Canadian Red Cross. Learn more at redcross.ca/someone.
Welcome back to Debate 2021 with ONNtv and Sue Online. Thank you for joining us today. We do have all four leaders or representatives from each party who are candidates for the upcoming September 20th election. We'd like to thank you guys so far for answering the questions. If you have a question for our candidates, feel free to take to Facebook, submit, and we will receive those in the studio and ask. So far, we have asked 2 questions, and I appreciate your responses. Heidi has a third for you at the moment.
I do. I'll direct this question to Casper. Casper, you did come on our morning show, and I did have the pleasure of speaking with you. And you referenced then, as you did moments ago, your party's intention to rebalance the power. I want to talk about the local housing market and how it's become increasingly out of reach for lower to middle class income individuals to get in, right? To buy a house, to be able to afford to live in a reasonable setting. What are your party's strategies to help rebalance that market?
You will begin when the bell rings.
So I believe that the housing issue is primarily due to mismanagement of the country's monetary resources. We've been printing money like crazy. We have $1 trillion deficit now. It's causing inflation across the map. Everything is more expensive, whether that be a 2x4 to build a house or an entire house. Me being a young Canadian, I really wanted to buy a house in the area. I'm a successful business owner. I'm now pursuing politics. I should be in a position where I can afford a home. I can't buy a house. I can't even dream of buying a house with the prices that are going up right now. And I know that that's mainly due to issues that have happened in the past few years, because I've noticed the prices of houses in Sault Ste. Marie completely drastically get to unsustainable levels where I can't imagine purchasing a house for any saved amount of money. So then we're limited to borrowing, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the bank to put us even further in debt. So I believe that the problem is inflation, and I think we need to pay our debts back to bring the value of our dollar back to sustainable levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper.
Thank you.
We'll now open the floor to the other candidates. If you would like a rebuttal, please raise your hand and we'll get to you. Marie, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
So I agree, housing has become an increasingly huge issue here in Sault Ste. Marie and across Northern Ontario. The extreme price inflation that used to be confined to the big cities like Toronto and Vancouver has migrated north, especially during the pandemic. So what I'm hearing stories as I go door to door are people who, had rentals, their rents are being jacked up. We're having speculators from big companies down south or from out of Canada who are buying up properties and tossing people out because they don't feel they are the right kind of tenants. So every time, you hear stories about people who made a great sale, that's great, but there's so many more stories about people who can't afford their rent. They're being forced out of their homes.
10 seconds.
and they're having to sign 18-month leases just to secure an apartment. And it's a travesty.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Any other candidate wish to have a rebuttal to that question? Terry, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Well, thank you very much. We just recently announced our A Home for Everyone, the housing plan, and it is absolutely a great plan because we're seeing a lot of people coming home, over the last little while, over the last 5 years. The prices are getting really expensive. So we're going to have three things. We're going to unlock home ownership, build more homes, and protect your rights. You can go to my website for more details on that program. It's huge. We're talking about 1.4 million. It's much larger than the conservative plan. Homes, as well as affordable housing for the lower income. During the pandemic, we announced 3 housing projects. We converted 2 schools, Rosedale, St. Bernadette's, and we had a housing project in Achawana as well for affordable housing. And some of those have wraparound services. There's a daycare in one, there's going to be services in another. And that's on top of the, I think about 7 or 9 housing things that I did in my previous years as well. And again, in talking with the people at the DSAB, this is a significant step.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Terry, for that. Actually, Heidi has a follow-up question for you, Terry.
I just want to, okay, so you're talking about, these affordable housing projects. Are they not tied to income? Because in the instance of individuals who work, sometimes the criterion to be eligible to live in these housing projects do not allow for people who work.
So there's 2 components. So there's the lower income one, which is the affordable housing projects that I spoke to. Thanks for the follow-up question. And the second one is our Home for Everyone plan, which is available to all people. It allows you to put down less money, tax-free. There's more supports. There's rent to own. If you're renting, there's an opportunity to rent to own. It is a major plan. I invite people to go to my website and take a look at it. It has details, but it is for all people, and it helps people under the age of 40, people that are transitioning out of their probably their homes for whatever reason. But it is just a major plan for everyone. So it's a multi-pronged approach.
You have 10 seconds.
Thanks for the question. And yes, it would take me probably 60 minutes to talk about it all. I invite the viewers to go and look at it. It's amazing. And it's really going to benefit Sault Ste. Marie as we're seeing so many people coming home.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate the follow-up and the follow-up question from Heidi and answering that. We have 2 more questions, and then from there we're going to go to our viewers.
Sunny.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Sunny. I do see your hand waving behind me. Sunny, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings. My apologies.
Thank you. Yes, you know what? Home prices are soaring here in Sault Ste. Marie. We know that. We've seen that. And, one of the things in that Liberal plan is a new tax on the sale of your new home. It's going to make it more difficult for people to get into new homes. We have a real plan. We have a plan that will help people in housing. We have a plan to build 1 million homes within 3 years. We're going to do that by freeing up at least 15% of the real estate that's owned currently by the federal government for housing. We're going to also introduce anti-money laundering legislation so that people cannot inflate the prices of homes in areas where we are by bringing in investors from foreign countries. We're going to then encourage investment from foreign countries into sustainable rental housing units so that we can have an easier cost of living for everyone for their homes, for their rental units. These market conditions have become just inaccessible for new Canadians or new people who are starting out in life. We have to start bringing that down, and we have to reduce those taxes. We can't implement a new tax on the sale of your home.
10 seconds. Thank you very much. We do have another question with regards to education that we want to talk about. Heidi, do you want to address that question?
Sure. So what has been documented, and the effects are only now just being played out and evaluated. Children that have been caught up in the ongoing lockdowns, particularly those in the lower elementary levels, are being identified as now having learning gaps, learning deficits in foundational pieces. I would like to know, I'll direct this to you, Marie, because you are an educator. Mm-hmm. What is your party's plan to address these deficits? From what I can see, children are still being held to the same benchmark standards that they have been all along. How are they expected to achieve those when they don't have the foundational pieces in place?
Well, as you know, education is a provincial issue, but it is very important that the federal government get involved in ensuring that all students have access to quality education, and especially during the the extreme challenge that was the last year, 18 months, back and forth from online to hybrid learning to learning in person. There are a multitude of students who have very significant learning gaps. This was especially difficult for students who have learning disabilities or learning differences. And the supports that we need to put in place for these students are significant.
10 seconds.
We as the NDP would work with all provincial governments to ensure that a substantial back to basics learning plan, or back to catch-up plan.
Thank you very much for your rebuttal. And Casper, you can now have 60 seconds. Once the bell rings, you may begin. Casper, unmute.
I wish I had
There
more
you
than
go.
60 seconds, but being a student and a new parent, I noticed that what we need to do first and foremost is listen to the parents and get out of their way. Right now, we're putting forth mandates that prohibit students from getting back into education. It should be a right, but however, we're putting forward these mandates that prevent them going back to school. We're sending children to school where they're forced to cover their faces, and the teachers are also unable to articulate with their facial expressions how to pronunciate words. Social aspects are being lost. I think it's important maybe to implement maybe something outside or something that allows education to continue. We need to also listen to parents and see maybe parents have some good ideas as well to put forth. I really wish I had more time on this question, and I hope maybe we will have an opportunity to talk more about it. However, I really feel that we're lacking big time in allowing students to freely pursue education.
10 seconds.
The government should really get out of their way to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper. My next question also pertains to education, and I'm going to go, oh, I'm sorry. No, I think Terry. Terry, I'm so sorry. I think I've done that to you twice now. You got to stand up in this corner a little bit more. Okay, Terry, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings. You may begin.
That's okay. Well, thank you very much. And very quickly, the federal government is $8 out of $10 in spending in COVID-19 support and relief. And we have worked with the provinces and territories and went into areas that weren't traditionally federally. Locally, we invested $1.4 million in area schools through the Safe Restart Agreement, the COVID-19 resilience, the climate action funding, which is going to keep our students, our teachers, our parents, the whole bit safer. They're putting in better ventilation, better lighting, cleaning areas, barriers to prevent COVID-19 so that our kids and everyone in the school system is safer. And I was proud to make those announcements as a former trustee and as a father and as a brother to many educators and a son of a principal. So we have done that, and we're working very well in Canada together, and including with the education. And we also did $7.5 million to the kids' helpline, so the kids can reach out, those young ones that are having problems, text or whatever. And I can tell you the local uptake has been amazing.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. You know, we do have some follow-up questions to that, and understanding that each of you might want a little bit more. We will come back to this question at the end. But Sunny, if you'd like to take your 60 seconds to answer first, we'll do that, and then we'll move on to another question about education. And from there, we are going to move to our community and the questions that they've posed to you. However, first, Sunny, go ahead. You have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Sure. Thank you very much. This is an important question because education is something that is going to be at the forefront of everybody's mind in the next week or so. Families are preparing for this and kids are preparing to go back to school. Yes, we recognize that this is provincial jurisdiction. So we have to know that a federal government is going to support the provincial government and know that it is going to support the needs of the children going back to school. One of the things we also recognize, for over a decade, I've been with a foundation here that supports children with mental health issues. Now, one of the things we recognize is because of COVID and the isolation that these kids have faced, there are some significant mental health issues that do come up with anxiety and things like that stop them from learning. That's why our party is going to make historical investments in mental health, and specifically to the not-for-profits and the charities, providing $150 million for them to provide assistance to those kids frontline so that they can get in the classrooms, get rid of those barriers, and actually learn and get right back up to speed and right back and be innovators in Canada for us in the future.
Thank you. Again, we will come back with some follow-up questions to that and give you guys maybe 60 seconds to 90 seconds more at the end. We do want to get to our community members who took the time to address some questions. But I have a question for you with regards to education. My last question to you was, how are you going to represent, as MPs, yes, you represent the country, but you are here from Sault Ste. Marie. How are you going to represent the residential school system and what had happened, and how are you going to bring that home and find out if there's any unmarked graves here on our site? And thank you for answering that question. My next question also pertains to the education. How are you going to represent our First Nation communities and Indigenous communities by going to the federal government and suggesting strongly that this should be part of our history books? And I am going to pose this question to Marie. You have 90 seconds to answer.
I know when I was in school, I heard very little about residential schools as part of education, as part of my educational upbringing. The first time I really understood and learned about it was when I became a teacher, and I worked in a Northern Reserve community where there was a residential school, had been there even just a few years before. And I think it is incredibly important that we have all people, all students, all children, everybody understands the reality that is our true history in Canada and the legacy that has been left by the residential school system on Indigenous people especially, but on all of Canada. It is our history, and we need to understand. And the reality that is the tragedy.
Thank you. 60 seconds is up. Thank you very much. I would pose this question to the other three candidates. If you'd like to have a rebuttal, please raise your hand. Sunny, we'll start with you. You have 60 seconds. You may begin when you hear the bell.
Thank you. This is a very important question. And I think your question gets right to the heart of what will we do as an MP? And the answer is hands-on. You cannot be someone who sits on the sideline. You cannot be someone who simply makes announcements and lets everyone else do the work. This is something I am personally invested in here in our community. This is something that I think is important for all of us. And you're absolutely right. It's a history that needs to be told. It's a history that we need to learn from, and it's investments that we need to make. We need to build and foster an environment of trust and understanding with our First Nations partners to understand what they need and understand what they need in order to get things done. We can't stand in front of everyone and drive the bus to get this done. We have to let our partners do this, let our partners lead us and tell us what will be appropriate and tell us how we can move forward with them together. There's only one way we're going to do this, and it's together. And we can embrace the history, learn from the history, and learn from our individuals and build a future forward together with us collectively and collaboratively.
Thank you for your answer, Sunny. I pose the question to the other two candidates. Casper, I see your hand raised. You have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
So I agree with Sunny. I think it's very important that we listen to the people that have a direct emotional connection to this issue and provide them leadership roles in managing it to be a part of the solution. Like, we can't change history, but we do need to recognize the truth of it. We need to get it right, and we need to learn from our past. And the only way to do that is to have a concrete plan, to literally formulate a body of people that have a variety of strengths and contribution potential, but to have that relationship to the issue. And that's what I really think has been missing. There's been a disconnect there. To make a written concrete plan, an accountable plan, step by step, with targets, with goals, and get it right. Make people accountable for the lack of progress in a lot of these issues. And provide a platform for history to be announced, to rewrite the books appropriately, moving forward.
10 seconds.
So we can learn from our lessons. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper. I appreciate that answer. And Terry, I believe I did see your hand raised. You have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Thank you. Just picking up on what I made the comment earlier, we have a center here, a university, and an Indigenous university. It's going to be one of its kind. And I can tell you that's really, really important for the future. But we've also taken other action. I personally meet with the chiefs and councillors, Indigenous leadership all the time. They have my cell phone. We talk all the time. And I listen. And what I do is I act on what they look for. I'm really good at getting investments, record-breaking investments. So we've done a lot around this area. Specifically to answer your question, that we've had as a special program that we funded. It was called Elders in the Classroom. And it was a beautiful program where elders would go from Garden River, Batchewan, Métis, and they go into the classroom and teach the kids. So you're right. You said it was provincial in nature, but I know as an MP, I can be creative and I can do things.
Yeah.
And
10 seconds.
it's a good thing. So those are just some of the examples of the success that we've had with elders in the classroom, and I look forward to more of that. And I do hope that the provinces and the territories do implement it into their curriculum.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate the answers of from all the candidates. As we know, there's 3 levels of government, federal being the highest. Working together with all 3 levels to approach this would be the right approach, and I thank you for taking the time to answer that. We really want to highlight the questions that we have received from our community. We are now going to switch over to some recorded questions. Again, we will direct the question to a certain candidate. You will have 90 seconds, and then the other candidates will choose. We will have 60 seconds. Here's your first question.
I am from Garden River First Nation. I'm a grandmother, mother, auntie, and my name's Candace Sim Kiwadenagkwe from, which means North Star Woman. My question to you today, Terry and Sunny, is that we have murdered and missing women across our country that do not receive the same recognition or efforts of being found and their murders being solved in the same manner as non-natives. What do you have planned to help address this horrible pattern? We also have residential school children being recovered at an alarming rate as a result of genocide and crimes against humanity. Over 6,500 babies have been recovered so far, and there's no news of this in today's world. Why is there no appointment from the government to address this, to sit down and speak with First Nations and see what we want, what we need from this government? I said, why are these crimes against humanity not being addressed by the Canadian government? And what will you do to advocate for First Nations?
Thank you very much for that question. The first candidate that she wanted this question answered was for you, Terry. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. This government has taken action on missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2 SLGBTQIA plus peoples. You know, the violence endured by generations of Indigenous women, girls is indeed a tragedy, and we've taken concrete actions, and we continue to grow them. And in our platform, we want to accelerate the implementation of the federal pathways that were released a couple of years in 2021 to address these issues and to accelerate our work with all partners collectively and create a standing federal, provincial, territorial table on that. It's deeply disturbing what has happened. I have bridged and had meetings with Indigenous leadership, with cabinet ministers, with the Prime Minister winning this in here firsthand to hear it. And we're going to continue doing this in a nation-to-nation manner. And my job is just to continue to do that. And we have done really well working together as this community. And we just need to address that, because it's as a father of children that are Métis, I can tell you that it really, really moves me. And I can tell you that we need to continue to work on these travesties. We have calls to actions, and we do have implemented many things. And
10 seconds.
We continue to do that by listening to the Indigenous leadership that guide us both nationally and here locally.
Thank you, Terry. Sunny, our community member did direct this question to you, so out of respect to that, I will give you 90 seconds. You may begin when the bell rings.
Thank you. This is a very important question. This is extremely important. You know, I often brag about Sault Ste. Marie, and it's something I do regularly, and it's something I do across the country. And the reason I brag about Sault Ste. Marie is my experience as a police officer and my experience working with First Nations police services in our surrounding area. We simply do it better here than other places across the country. We partner better and we work together towards a meaningful solution and meaningful resolutions to crimes and answers for families. There's nothing more difficult to a family than not being able to answer the questions as to what happened to their loved one. Here in Sault Ste. Marie, I have and our police service has been able to partner really well, extremely well, with our First Nations partners to find the author of a crime, bring them before the justice system. I want to take that, and I've advocated already to replicate what we do here across the country so that people do see it across the country and they can do it better to find these answers that people are looking for and find solutions long term that will help First Nations communities address this problem and help us be a valued partner moving forward to find solutions long-term for those problems. In addition to the second part of the question.
The time is up. I appreciate your response. To our other two candidates, Marie and Casper, should you wish to speak to that question, please raise your hand. Marie, I saw that flicker. Hello. We will start with you. You may begin. You have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
I am a woman, a daughter, a sister, an auntie, and a single mother. And from the moment that my child was born, my greatest fear has been that he would be left alone without the love and care of his mother. For far too many Indigenous children and families, this fear has become reality. We must not allow the report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls to sit on a shelf or be glossed over. The NDP will work in partnership with women, families of missing and murdered women, community and the communities to implement the calls to justice. We will establish a comprehensive plan to address violence against Indigenous women and girls and the 2S LGBTQIA people. And the New Democrats will also act to ensure full gender equity in First Nation status as a matter of priority.
Thank you, Marie. Appreciate that. Casper, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
So I think this problem runs deep, and I think it's relatable to a lot of Indigenous issues that we're facing in this country. An important difference and stance of the PPC is to take a really hard look at the outdated Indian Act. The name itself suggests how outdated it really is, and it needs to be really looked at. It's very existent, controls every aspect of Indigenous people's lives, how they live, where they live, what activities they can participate in. It segregates, it discriminates, and it really classifies. It literally creates two classes of people, and it sows naturally division legally and then also in the minds of citizens. So with this particular issue, it's been an ongoing issue, and it simply hasn't been prioritized. And I think there's a real disconnect because of that. And again, it's the same problem. You know, it like I said, we need to really establish a committee of people that are associated to the problem and then break the problem down and approach it with action plans, with targets, so there's accountability.
Thank you very much, Casper, for that response. I appreciate all the candidates for responding. We are going to go back to our video feed of of local community members with our next question.
Thank you again for hearing my questions. I have another additional question. Why is the process of the Truth and Reconciliation not moving forward? I want to know, and my people want to know, what do you have in place to address these issues? And what do you feel needs to be put in place to resolve these issues?
Thank you very much for that question. I am going to send this question to you, Casper. You have 90 seconds when the bell rings.
So why hasn't it taken place? Really, I don't know. I hope that the development of the PPC party, we can at least shine a different light, a different perspective on some of these problems that have not been addressed properly by previous parties over the years. This has been ongoing. I'm hoping that we can bring it really back to the beginning to provide a common sense forward. Like, first and foremost, we need to listen to the people. I've been saying this over and over again. with a connection to the issue, provide them leadership roles, because we cannot change history, but we have to get it right. We need people that are keenly aware of what the problem is. We can't depend on people from Ottawa that have no association of the problem to think that they're going to come up with a solution. They just don't care enough. So we need people that really care what the problem is about. And that's like I said, there's a disconnect, and that's missing. And then again, make a written plan. Have targets, have goals, have accountability, and then also think back to the people that were responsible. What went wrong? What did we not get right? How can we improve? It's really a common sense way forward, and I just think it just hasn't gotten enough priority. Thank you.
10 seconds. Thank you, Casper. Appreciate that. I now open the floor to the other three candidates. Should you wish to respond, you have 60 seconds. Please raise your hand if you wish to do so. Terry, I see your hand this time. Let's start with you. You may begin when the bell rings.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the question. And this is really, really important work that we've undertaken. We've worked across the federal government with our partners so that 80% of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action involving the Government of Canada are now complete or well underway. We're working with residential school survivors, Indigenous people, province and territories, and educators to incorporate Aboriginal and treaty rights, the historical history of residential schools and Indigenous contributions into the school curricula, and introduce Bill C-15, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which received royal assent on June 21st, 2021 on National Indigenous Peoples Day. And we passed the Act respecting First Nation, Inuit, and Métis children, youth, and families, which affirms the inherent right of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities to exercise jurisdictions over their child and family services. And we built and refurbished almost 200 schools so that tens of thousands of Indigenous kids could have a better education. And we're going to continue to invest in child and family services, including $3 billion to support communities.
Time's up. Thank you very much, Terry. I appreciate your response. Thank you very much. Sunny, I see you going with your piece, son. Let's go. Let's hear from you, Sunny. You got 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Thank you. This is another important question. And you know, we've talked about this a number of times, the Truth and Reconciliation Report and what needs to be done. Again, I'm very proud to know that this came about in 2007 as a result of the Conservative government of the time. Our government, our party is still committed to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We're still committed to solving issues for First Nation individuals in a meaningful way. We're committed to meaningful dialogue that is results driven and finds results for those individuals. We're committed to providing over $1 billion to create mental health facilities and culturally appropriate facilities for First Nations communities. And we're committed to ending boil water advisories and safe drinking water for individuals on First Nations communities. These are things that need to be done. They haven't been done over the last 6 years with this Liberal government. It's time to roll up the sleeves. It's time to get to work. It's time to get the job done.
Thank you very much, Sunny. We appreciate your response. I'll open up the floor again. Maria, would you wish to? Yeah, okay. You have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
The NDP has been and continues to be committed to the full implementation of the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. New Democrats will work in partnership with Indigenous people to co-develop a national action plan for reconciliation and discriminatory funding of child welfare systems, fully implement and support Jordan's Principle, and invest in healthcare, including mental health and addictions treatment that includes culturally supportive programming. We want not only for Indigenous people to have a seat at the table, but to help build that table, they need to lead this reconciliation.
Thank you very much, Marie, for taking the time for that rebuttal. We do have one more question. We're going to move on to another topic. It is a question from our community member.
Very fine. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions for all the candidates locally here in Algoma. The first question I have is, do you believe that lockdowns work? And then the second question is, does your party commit to not using the notwithstanding clause policies to deal with COVID-19?
Terry, I direct that question to you. You have 90 seconds to begin when you hear the bell.
Thank you very much. And, you know, during this unprecedented pandemic, we have supported the provinces and territories and the people, the businesses, the frontline workers that have been affected by the lockdowns. And like I said, we're 8 out of $10. We are supporting small businesses through a number of measures, which has helped them significantly. The wage subsidy, the rent subsidy, to name a few, the CERB. Those are all, and there's many, many more to support them, including the FedNor things that I had launched to support our businesses, communities, and First Nations. I feel that the best thing to get us to the end of the pandemic is getting vaccinated. We have an excellent rollout here in Canada. We're one of the best in the world, and our vaccination rates are high. They're high here in the Soo. We're 85, 75%. We have in Canada. We also have more vaccines available now for boosters in the future. We are 2 months ahead of schedule, and we are doing one of the best jobs on it. And we have started up local vaccination facilities and on domestic supply too as well. So we're going to continue to do this, and the best way to do it is to continue to support each other and work as Team Sault Ste. Marie with all levels of government, and to make sure that when it is necessary to stay at home and to stay sheltered in place, to protect our senior citizens, to protect our long-term care homes, to protect our hospitals, that we do it. But the best thing now.
Thank you, Terry. Time is up. Thank you very much, Terry. Would another candidate like to respond to that question from our community member? Sunny, you have 60 seconds. You may begin.
Thank you. This is an important question. We've all struggled. We've all struggled with lockdowns individually. We've all struggled as people in our community. We've all struggled as businesses. Businesses have really struggled. So do lockdowns work? The first part of your question. I think we did see the numbers come down drastically when lockdowns happened. So do lockdowns work to reduce numbers? I think the evidence is clear. But do lockdowns work for businesses? Do lockdowns work for people and their mental health? We know that happened. We know that there's struggles that happen when that comes forward. So the best thing that we can do is to have unity. The worst thing any leader can do is take a public health issue and turn it into a divisive political issue. Everyone is on the same side of this. Everybody wants to see a safe community and a healthy community, and one that is vibrant. Nobody wants to see anyone struggle. No one wants to see anyone suffer.
10 seconds.
This is a public health issue that we need to make sure that we address together, collectively as leaders, and make sure that we continue to help our community move forward.
Thank you very much for that response. Any other candidate wish to respond? Go ahead, Casper. You have 60 seconds.
So the PPC definitely differs in opinion in this. And there's two questions there, but I'll try to at least answer one in 60 seconds. Do lockdowns work? If you mean, do they work to bring small businesses in a country essentially to their knees? It does work. It works for monopolistic maybe organizations like Facebook and Walmart and Costco to thrive, but for small businesses, it's continuously detrimental. Small businesses have complied with all of the regulations that have been coming out, and lockdowns essentially is destroying small businesses. Now with more mandates coming out, with vaccination policies that will require businesses to ask for personal medical questions before they can allow patrons to come in, I think small businesses are really affected. So do they work? They work at making the small business owner, really suffer in Canada. And then to your second question, a hard no. So Section 33 of the charter allows the Constitution essentially to not be applied for certain situations.
Time's up. Thank you, Casper. Appreciate your response. And Marie, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Lockdowns are incredibly difficult, but they do save lives. It was vitally important that we acted when we did. And if we hadn't, we would have ended up, all you have to do is look right across the border to Chippewa County and see that their death rate is 6 times what ours was, and their population is only a third. So we could have potentially looked at hundreds of deaths here in Sault Ste. Marie, and that didn't happen. So the fact that we got $2,000 a month, the Liberals only wanted to give you $1,000 a month, but the NDP fought and got you $2,000 a month. We got you a 75% wage subsidy when the initial offering was a 10% wage subsidy. Those things are what kept businesses afloat. They kept people in their homes and able to afford their food.
Much, Marie, for your response. Time is up. We do have one more question that we're going to throw to the community, to community members for, and then after that, we're going to have a commercial to give you guys a little bit of a stretch your legs. So here's another question from a member of our community.
I'm Angie DeSimon from Addiction and Mental Health Advocates, and we are standing in front of the memorial wall in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. My question to all the candidates is, what do you plan on doing about the opioid crisis that is gripping our country?
Okay, thank you very much for that well thought out question. And Sunny, I'm going to start with you. You have 90 seconds to answer that question.
Thank you for that. This is a very important question. I mean, I've lived this myself. I've, unfortunately been in a position where I've had to help people who are struggling, who are in positions of suffering from opioid poisoning. This is a real issue. This is a real issue that has not been addressed for years in our community by our leadership. It has not been addressed in a meaningful way by anyone, and it needs to be addressed. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I have to put my boots on and dig the hole to build a facility here myself, I will. We have to get things moving, and we have to make those historic investments. Our party is committed to investing $325 million to create addictions facilities across the country, 1,000 beds and 50 new facilities to get people into the places they need for help when they need help in a timely fashion, not waiting 3 months for another position to go somewhere. We're going to help stem the flow of illegal narcotics into our country. We know where they're coming from. We know how to stop them. We have to put resources in the hands of frontline workers so that they can stop the flow of those illicit drugs coming into our communities. We also have to put tools in the hands of frontline workers to help those individuals. I know personally, because I work with agencies who deliver services on a daily basis, volunteer agencies, community agencies that help people every single day. We're going to help fund those agencies so they can continue to do the work that they do, the good work they do every day to combat this problem. This is a Canada problem. It needs a Canada solution. It needs someone with real world experience to get in and get the job done. And that's me.
Thank you, Sunny. Does anyone else wish to answer that question? Casper, you have 60 seconds when you hear the bell. Go ahead, Casper.
So I don't believe that that just stopping the flow of narcotics is going to solve the problem. Like I said, it's a complex problem, and we need to really understand that previous efforts have not at all helped in this. Like I said, addictions isn't a new concept. It's been around for a long time. All of our lives are affected to it in one degree or another. And programs have been developed in the past that focuses on mindset, on faith, on support structures, but most of all on the environment. Really the only way to address addictions is to address the state of mind, to empower the individual to make a daily decision to be free of it. But the individual must take personal responsibility to make that decision. So I believe the best way to deal with this problem is by creating empowered environments with strong support structures to support, individuals to overcome addiction, to surround those people with people that are winning at the battle with addiction.
Thank you very much, Casper, for that response. I open the floor to any other candidate who wishes to respond. Terry, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Thank you very much. And this issue has been in Sault Ste. Marie for a very long period of time, and during this opioid crisis, it's been exacerbated by a lot, and that's why we took action and we funded that program through the Sault Ste. Marie Mental Health Association for a project that is going to help battle it. We've worked with our First Nations to do it as well. But it's a whole government approach. It's working with the provinces. We've transferred hundreds of millions of dollars to them, including emergency funding. And I'm glad to see the movement that is being made on the level 3 facility. I also know that there are groups that are looking at safe injection sites. We have a program for that through a substance program that my understanding is that they are applying to. And that involves community consultations. The police chief has already come out and said that he's in favor of it, but the community as a whole has to work with that. It's going to take a multi-pronged approach. It won't be waving a magic wand, but it'll be consistently working together with compassion and treating it as a health issue that it is. These are people. These are neighbors. We have to come together and stop this divisive.
Thank you very much, Terry. The time is up. And Marie, I do believe you had your hand up as well. If you'd like to respond, you have 60 seconds when the bell rings.
Far too many families in Sault Ste. Marie, including some of my own family members, have been caught up in the crisis of opioid addiction. It's been raging across the Soo and across Canada for a number of years. This is a public health emergency, and a new Democratic government would declare that and work with all levels of government. We would work to end the stigma and the criminalization of drug addiction so that people can seek help without fear. I would support safe, medically regulated alternatives, overdose prevention and safe injection sites, and expanded treatment and on-demand services so people wouldn't, as was mentioned before, have to wait 3 months, 6 months to get treatment. People who need treatment and who want treatment need treatment now. The NDP would also launch an investigation into the role that big pharmaceutical companies have played in fueling this crisis and seek compensation from those countries for the public cost of this epidemic.
Okay, thank you very much, Marie, and to all our candidates for asking that question. We are going to take a quick commercial break. We want to remind you this will be replayed again tonight at 7 p.m. as well as this weekend at noon on Saturday and Sunday, gearing you up for the September 20th election. And you should start to receive your Election Canada in the mail September the 10th. We're going to take a commercial break, stretch your legs, have a glass of water.
ONNtv News, supported by Nogda Windeman Family and Community Services. Be an alternative care parent. A child needs you.
ONNtv News, supported by James Seaton Mortgage Specialist. Your new home doesn't come with mortgage advice. I do. Call James Seaton Mortgage Specialist, RBC 705-975-1519. ONNtv News, supported by Northern Safety and Training, locally owned and operated. Get your DZ training for only $2,000, tax included. Call 705-987-8460 for more information. ONNtv News, supported by Rick Mooney, sales representative for Street City Realty. Sold, the sign you want, Rick, the realtor you need.
Stay humble and kind. Don't expect a free ride from no one. Don't hold a grudge or a chip, and here's why. Bitterness keeps you from flying. Always stay humble and kind. Yeah.
Black is up, ready, and gonna come to that camera.
Welcome back to the Debate 2021. You are here with your MP candidates, all four of them. Thank you for joining us today. Now we're going to open the floor up to you, the candidates. This is a section where you each get to ask another candidate a question. They have 60 seconds to respond. Marie, I'm going to start with you. Please choose a candidate, ask your question, and when you hear the bell to that candidate, you may respond. Who is your question directed to, and what is your question?
I will ask a question of Mr. Spina.
Okay. There. Okay. Ask your question, then the bell will ring for Mr. Spina to respond.
Excellent. So, Mr. Spina, the Conservative Party leader continues to change his position on every issue and confuse voters, but he still says that he will not eliminate for-profit long-term care, which the NDP would implement. We've seen how for-profit long-term care facilities have provided lower levels of care, yet the Conservative Party wants to continue to promote profit as a main motivation in long-term care. What is your position on eliminating profit in long-term care, and the vulnerability of our elders.
Okay, Sunny, when you hear the bell, you may answer that question. Thank you, Marie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the question, Maria. I really appreciate it. It allows me an opportunity to expand on some things that we did talk about earlier. You know, our party, including myself, we are committed to universal healthcare. We're committed to universal healthcare coast to coast to coast across this great country and helping individuals day to day. In fact, we want to go even further than that because we're going to increase year by year transfers to provinces for healthcare, specifically for healthcare. We're going to increase those transfers to help individuals so that each province can rely on consistent, predictable, sustainable funding for the future year after year. We know that with the avalanche of unfocused spending that the current Liberals have been employing, it comes at two drastic costs, either massive increases in taxes or massive cuts to services like healthcare. We don't want to see that. We have a full commitment to healthcare to protect the most vulnerable in our society. And it includes an increase in transfers to provinces every year for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. Okay, Sunny, you were in the hot seat for that first question. That gives you the right to ask the second question. Who would you like to ask a question to, and what is your question?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to have this opportunity because myself and my fellow candidates, we haven't had the opportunity to sit together yet collectively or engage with each other. So at least we have an opportunity here to talk with each other. Something that's been on my mind. I'm going to ask Mr. Sheehan a question today, and this has been on my mind for a while. You've had an opportunity to sit as a representative of Sault Ste. Marie for the past 6 years. What's something that you wanted to accomplish that you just didn't get done over the last 6 years?
Well, Sonny, we've had record-breaking announcements. I'm sure you've seen my flyers that have went out. You know, the $420 million that went to Algoma Steel is going to anchor the steel plant in our community for generations to come. You know, right after I got elected, I was called in 2015. I was called to a meeting where the Algoma Steel was going into bankruptcy, and it is. We fought the Trump tariffs. We got them back on track. And so this recent announcement not only anchors the steel plant in for generations, but it's going to fight climate change. It's like the equivalent of taking almost 1 million vehicles off the road. I think that we're starting to see our community grow again, and it's absolutely amazing seeing the growth that's happened over the last 5 or 6 years. So I want to continue on creating that positive growth for everyone, and affordable housing, everything. That was a list. I like to break records, and I want to break even more records.
10 seconds, Terry.
So thank you very much. I look forward to breaking more records of my records. I guess is the way to answer it.
Okay, well, thank you for that response. Terry, I open the floor to you. What question do you have, and with whom would you like to ask?
And I guess I would, and it's topical because it was just in the news about the other parties not having a costed platform. We are 12 days away from an election, and neither the Conservative or the NDP have a costed platform. But the Parliamentary Budget Office has said, we have sent back a whole bunch of stuff to people. So, that's a concern. And we remember last time, and my question will be to Mr. Spina, when I asked the question about why did you release your platform on Friday night, the Thanksgiving weekend, days again before the election, that had hidden cuts. So my concern is why did you launch your platform without having it costed?
You have 60 seconds, Sonny.
Thank you. So I guess the question would really be, why was an unnecessary election call that is costing the taxpayers of Canada over $600 million? Why are we borrowing $424 million a day, contributing to inflation that is contributing to the rising cost of living, making life unaffordable for Canadians day to day? Nobody knew this election was coming except the Liberals. It takes no more effort than to look at their spending in the weeks before the election and see the thousands of dollars they ramped up in spending for advertising at the taxpayers' expense. So when we sit here and listen to the Liberal Party ask us why platforms weren't fully costed or why things weren't done, well, geez, you were the only ones that knew an election was coming. Canadians didn't know. Canadians didn't want it. Canadians weren't prepared to pay for it, but you forced it on Canadians anyway. And here we are, and now Canadians have the opportunity to have their say on that.
Well, thank you very much. Well, Casper, you are the last on the list here. You got a question. What is your question, and who would you like to answer it?
Well, since Sonny is answering questions directly and clearly, I should probably ask him. So I'd like to bring your attention back to Nova Scotia, the shooting that happened where the Liberal government responded by enacting an order of council, by banning a variety of rifles and reclassifying them essentially, and implementing a $1 billion buyback program to remove guns from law-abiding citizens. With the flip-flopping happening from Mr. Aaron O'Toole, my question is, considering the method that they used in order of council to implement category classifications, and considering that 85% of all guns seized in crime here are illegally obtained from the United States, and considering that it costs $1 billion to remove guns from law-abiding citizens, do you stand by your party's decision to continue with this program?
Sonny, you have 60 seconds to answer that question.
Thank you. This is a very important question, and thank you for asking it. Casper and the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie, I have personally taken more illegal firearms out of the hands of criminals than I care to remember. I have never once been concerned about a lawful firearms owner's firearms. Never in the history of policing was I ever concerned with that. I am, however, concerned with illegal firearms that are illegally obtained and used to commit crimes. This current Liberal government has done nothing to stem the flow of illegal firearms coming into this community. They've done nothing to hold individuals accountable who are responsible for violent crime, and we will do that. Now, I understand it's very difficult for people to understand the definition of assault weapon. Assault weapon has been banned in Canada since 1977. The made-up term assault style weapon has no definition. So what our party is committed to do is reviewing completely the order in council that was put in place by the Trudeau Liberals to actually have professionals define an assault weapon and an assault style weapon so that individuals, lawful firearms owners, know what is legal and know what is not. None of this wishy-washy stuff from the federal Liberal Party of whatever they desire of the day to be illegal.
Time, thank you, sorry. Okay, thank you very much for those questions and for the answers. I wanted to put each of you on the hot spot a little bit there, which I think we did. What the next section is going to be about is we're going to ask you to have 90 seconds, talk about whatever you want. These are your closing remarks. Please keep that in mind. Marie, I'll begin with you. You have 90 seconds.
Sorry.
You can start with, go ahead. These are closing remarks, Marie. Do you have your closing remarks? You have 90 seconds.
Okay. So, friends, New Democrats are different because we are working people. For our whole history, we fought for better working conditions and standards that lift everyone. We know that good jobs that treat people fairly make a difference to Canadian families, and that setting Canadians up for success in the world of work and future benefits us all. New ways of thinking can shape the recovery from the COVID-19 crisis and help make our economy fairer and deliver the results we want. What we've seen over the past 6 years is a Liberal Prime Minister who loves to say the right things, promise to address issues that matter to Canadians, but with no intention of delivering them. Liberals have been promising pharmacare and childcare for decades. We have a Conservative leader who wants to convince you that he's dragging his party kicking and screaming into the 21st century. All the while, the majority of his caucus contradict him on key social issues every day.
10 seconds.
Talk about privatizing your healthcare system and creating a system where the rich man can jump the line. Jagmeet and the NDP have a record of fighting for you instead of fighting for billion.
Thank you very much, Marie, for responding. Sonny, you have 90 seconds for your closing statement. You may begin when you hear the bell.
Thank you. You know, this is an extremely important election for Canadians. It's extremely important for the people of Sault Ste. Marie. I have spent my life serving the people of this community. I was born here, I was raised here, and I've served this community here for decades. I live my life by the motto of our Rotary Club, service above self, and I do that every single day, no matter what happens. After 2019, I heard you. I heard the voices of Canadians. I heard that they were worried about healthcare, so I joined boards that dealt with healthcare in our community to help drive that forward. I listened to the voices in our community, and not only that, I'm with you frontline, side by side, every day, seeing your needs and helping you fulfill those needs so that we can move forward together. It's important for us to have a clear voice in Ottawa, and it's important for us to have a clear voice in Sault Ste. Marie, someone that will stand up for the people of our community, listen to what our people want, and move that forward and advance it forward. Not someone who will simply make announcements that don't create jobs. I'm here because I love jobs, I love this community, I love putting people to work, and I love bragging about our community. I want to take every individual in this community, rise them up together, And together we can move forward. Together we can secure our future. And together we will make this community an incredible place. And we will be able to make it a beacon for the world to look at Sault Ste. Marie for a place to
10
come,
seconds.
to thrive, and to grow your family, and to grow your business, and grow our economy.
Thank you, Sunny. And Casper, first of all, I want to apologize that I was not here on the day when you came into the studio, but I wanted to thank you for coming into the studio. I didn't get an opportunity to thank you and to apologize for not being here that day. You have 90 seconds for your closing remarks. You may begin when you hear the bell.
So I don't have a scripted response to this. I really wanted to reach out and find some commonality between the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie and all the candidates for everybody to urge people to really think about what is going on. We haven't heard anything about the COVID response. We haven't heard anything about a lot of these mandates that are removing the rights of individuals across the country. I just read on the news during this interview that now we can't even go to funerals without providing documentation of mandatory vaccinations. I feel that there's a lot of segregation happening. I feel that we're not being diverse in our opinions and our thoughts. And I really want to urge everybody to just participate in more discussion in regards to what is happening. It's really a shame that none of this was discussed. It's a shame that we only had 60 seconds, 90 seconds to elaborate on such important issues of our time. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to participate in the discussion because it is such an important discussion. It's just a real shame that we didn't actually get to have a discussion. So I hope that we'll have more of an opportunity in some of the debates moving forward. And I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to participate in this democratic process that we value. And thank you to all the viewers for tuning in and listening to my rambles.
Thank you very much for that response. Terry, you have 90 seconds to, Terry, you have 90 seconds for your closing statement.
I wanted to thank Sue Online for hosting this and the other candidates for participating. It was a really important discussion. And, our platform is about building back better. It's about coming roaring back. We have done a tremendous job over these last 18 months working together in Canada, and in particular, Sault Ste. Marie as Team Canada. With all levels of government, the public, the private sector, and that has resulted in very low COVID-19 positivity results. But at the same time, I continue to delivered results since 2015. During the pandemic, you heard about the affordable housing projects that we've announced. You heard about the protection of the long-term care homes. You heard about the PPEs for hospitals and schools. You heard about us supporting small businesses. And I wanted to correct the record. It was, our community putting forward through stakeholder engagement, telephone, videos, Zoom, around the clock working, to support people, that we came up with the 75% wage subsidy and all these other programs like the CERB in record amounts of time to support people. We have, and we will continue, and we've extended, and we are extending our supports through our platform through the winter season too as well. We have been there for all people, not just the 1%, but everyone, and we're going to continue to build back better. And we are in a very
10 seconds.
We're in a very great position to continue. And my last point is, we have the best green plan of any party. That's really making a change. And I'm proud that Sault Ste. Marie is being a leader.
Thank you very much, Terry. Time is up. Appreciate the response of all our candidates. Best of luck to each of you on the 20th of September. I will remind you that you should start receiving Election Canada mail in the mail after the 10th. If you don't, please go to electionscanada.ca for that information. We will be replaying this tonight at 7 p.m. as well as on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday at noon. Thank you for joining Heidi and Colette today. We appreciate everyone, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day. Thank you.